It's the year 2027, and China has just attacked Taiwan. That's the scenario for an operational war game called Dangerous Straits, Battle for Taiwan 2027. And it was led by the Gaming Lab at the Center for New American Security. Becca Wasser is a fellow for the defense program and co-lead of the Gaming Lab at CNAS. Becca, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
So who won?
Well, the long story is nobody really won. At the end of the game, no one felt as though they had won, but they also didn't feel as though they had lost. What really unfolded is most likely going to be a longer, more protracted conflict where both China and the US might be dug in for some time.
So let's talk about how the game is set up. There's a blue team, a red team, and a white team.
So the blue team is the United States, the red team is the China team, and the white team, or the white cell, it's the CNAS team who designed the war game. And so all of these teams have different objectives. The blue team is trying to defend Taiwan and protect the US homeland. The red team in this war game was trying to forcibly unify with Taiwan while still protecting Chinese leaders and their own territory as well.
So how do you pick the members of the teams?
So
how do you get that gig? That's what I'm asking.
Well, we'll keep you on speed dial for next time. But usually you're trying to look for the folks who have the requisite experience, who've either been in government before, if they are going to be, putting on the hat of a policymaker, they've had that job before. Or they're the top subject matter expert when it comes to China's military and defense strategy. You want to have the smartest people in the room because your game is only as good as your players are.
Was there a particular reason that 2027 was picked?
So 2027 has come up a few times by a variety of different U.S. military leaders. In particular, one of the former commanders of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command has said that that might be the window in which we might see China try to invade Taiwan. And this is in part because of some of China's military modernization and China's potential belief that they could be almost caught up to U.S. military power by the year 2027.
So that's when they'll be ready to take on the United States.
So that's when they could be ready. But there's so many things that go into it, right? You can modernize your military, you can buy as much equipment and develop as much capability. But as we've seen in places like Ukraine, you also need to be able to train. With that, you need to have the will to fight, and you need to have so many other factors that come into play. So there is a chance that China could be ready by 2027, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's when they would decide to potentially invade Taiwan.
Becca, is it a foregone conclusion that the U.S. would need to make a military response to a Chinese attack on Taiwan?
So this is the tricky thing about the U.S. stance of strategic ambiguity when it comes down to Taiwan. It's unclear exactly how and whether the United States would come to Taiwan's aid. But the U.S. Department of Defense and other senior leaders, including folks in the White House, have been very vocal about the fact that they are more likely to come to Taiwan's aid and defend Taiwan. So a lot of the research that we have been doing and a lot of folks at the Department of Defense, the analysis that they've been doing, really is predicated on defending Taiwan.
What are some of the lessons that you learned from this war game, aside from it's going to be a protracted war?
So I would say, aside from the fact that it's going to be a protracted conflict, there's sort of two top lessons learned for me. The first one is the power that U.S. allies and partners can bring to bear in such a potential conflict. This is not only military power, but also strategic significance, what it means for the United States and a bunch of other countries to be coming to Taiwan's aid while China likely stands alone. The next lesson learned, which is a big one, is the potential for nuclear risks. And this is incredibly scary because—
I was going to ask, did nuclear weapons come up?
So nuclear weapons did come up. Very early on, the China team decided to brandish nuclear weapons. Also later, after their nuclear threats had essentially gone ignored, they decided to detonate a nuclear weapon off the coast of Hawaii in a demonstration attack. And so while no U.S. citizens or forces were hurt in that attack, it's still really significant. It's the first time, it would have been the first time that nuclear weapons would have been used since World War II. So the nuclear escalation risks are real, and that is something that we need to be planning for to ensure that it doesn't happen.
What about cyber attacks? Did that come up in the game?
So it did, not a whole lot, in part just because of what our focus was, which was really getting at some of those strategic level conversations and making some of those broad courses of action. But, you know, the Red Team, one of the big things that they decided to do was they wanted to cut off Taiwan's leadership from the rest of the world. So they wanted to cut off communications, which they did mainly via space and cyber.
I wonder if there's any particular recommendations that came out of this for the Pentagon.
So we definitely have a lot. You know, I think one of the big ones is the need to have better forward presence and forward posture, and to ensure that that is a survivable forward posture. Another one is to strengthen some of our operational and strategic planning that we're doing with allies and partners, particularly if we are planning to fight alongside them. And then another one is trying to think of ways in which the United States, again, along with allies and partners, can shore up Taiwan's defenses.
All right. Well, Becca, thanks for telling us about this, and let's hope we learn some lessons from it before 2027.
This is true. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.